quite, maybe not quite familiar, but I definitely know of you. Respect highly what you do, and knew of you, and had considered reaching out to you before Adam introduced us. So it was perfect for him to mention a friend of mine is interested in possibly doing this, and I was thinking this is someone who I've thought of before and never thought they would be into this. It's insane that anyone is into this. So, like especially someone who I've thought about before. So I'm extremely excited to be able to chat. And I like just so you know, I kind of thought about this and maybe even manifested it beforehand.
Well, the feeling is totally mutual. And yeah, like I said, I've been a long time listener and we've got a lot of mutual friends. So yeah, Adam Shaw, obviously being one of them. But some other like early I lived in Vancouver in 2007 to 2011. So I think we have some of those Edmontonian migrants that landed there. And yeah, I love your podcast too because like I said, it's very genuine and I think yeah, you're a great conversationalist. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you. That's I mean, I guess I would say always nice to hear, but I don't hear it that often, so it's nice. The couple times I have heard it, I really appreciate that. And are you like did you go to Emily Carr when they all did? Like, are you part of that crop of Vancouver?
No, so I think I was like one of the only ones in that posse that wasn't at Emily Carr. I went to UBC. So I moved out there to go to school when I was 19 and I studied art history at UBC. But yeah, I think when we were all young, you just kind of like migrated towards each other. But yeah, a ton of basically all of them were at Emily Carr. But I'm not an artist. So like they were all artists, but I was like more of a reader and writer. So like I was not making stuff.
I mean, I kind of honorarily got lumped in with maybe not exactly, but I was kind of from a distance thought of as a part of that crew as well. And I didn't even live there. I never went to Emily Carr. So I know what it's like sort of to be associated with a really cool group of people without actually being a part of it. But I guess I shouldn't. UBC is as good as Emily Carr. I assume like a lot of people would like that to be mentioned with Emily Carr. I know different things, of course, but I don't want to minimize the UBC of it all.
It was good for me. It was what I was like interested in, So yeah, it was like I think both educational styles are good for like who migrates to, what they're wanting to do. But yeah, speaking of that, I have also known about you for quite some time because I think like the wizard gang people. I remember hearing of like Wes from Edmonton probably like since 2010 or so. So it's nice to finally meet the man, the myth, the legend.
It would have been, I mean, around that exact year would have been probably the height of the whole Wizards movement. So that's I don't know if anyone even would know what that is, but to me, that's the highest compliment. Like if
Yeah.
at the end of my life, someone thought about my small contribution to Wizards, that's really the best it could be.
Yeah, we're lucky to be associated, adjacent, wizard adjacent.
So you're from Saskatoon, and I'm just kind of learning about the. I always say Edmonton is a bit overrated for the people people who have gone on to do things from here don't typically talk about being from here, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of people would know certain things, but me, like I know all the people doing things elsewhere, they're from here. I didn't know about there was I mean this sounds rude, I apologize already. I was unaware of the Saskatoon exports. Like, is there a lot coming into there, or is it just you and Ian?
Just me and Ian. That'd be great. Don't no, there's a little squad that kind of went out from the city. Like I think you said in an episode like Edmonton, what did you say was like a smaller? No, Ian said Saskatoon's like a smaller Edmonton, which I think is true. And us growing up here, like I thought that Edmonton was like New York City. I was like, oh my God, we're going to like the big city. They got the mall, they've got like shopping. So it was like you guys were kind of giants to us. But yeah, I think it's like a little microcosm of Edmonton and Brandy was saying too, like growing up in a small town, there's like some people just get like big ideas and want to leave and see the world. But we have a few. The older gen, very older gen was Joni Mitchell went to our my high school, Hayden Bowman. So she's an alumni. And then like there's this girl, Katina Danabasis, and she is now a costume designer for movies, like a lot of A24 movies. So she's like a nice export. And then I don't know. Yeah, we're around. We moved around a bit.
I had never heard about the Joni Mitchell thing. That's
Yeah.
really, I mean, I don't want to minimize Katina, but the Joni Mitchell thing is insane. I had no idea.
It's my claim to fame. It's really my claim to fame. Or when someone's like, what's in Saskatoon? I was like, Joni Mitchell. Um, but yeah, it was a nice place to grow up. And like definitely now as I've gotten older, I really see like how special it is, or like I'm so proud to come from there and like come back here because like as we were saying about like technology and stuff, in a weird way, it like kind of stands out of time. Like it really is kind of just like small town, wholesome vibes. I mean, there's dodgy stuff going on, but it's not a metropolis that has evolved so quickly.
What is it? Feel like I assume you only get back sporadically. So does it change like a huge amount in between the times that you are able to visit?
No, the only thing I really notice is like, unfortunately, now downtown has become more desolate. I don't know what's going on there. And then obviously, like new restaurants and shops and stuff. I guess it is getting like globalized, like with hip, wine bars or something. But there's still kind of this cute thing that there's like one of each thing. Like there's like one good Italian restaurant and like one good, I don't know, vintage clothing shop. It's nice. You don't have like the paradox of choice so much.
Oh, for sure. I was just about to say the option paralysis that you get. Like when
Yeah.
there's too many good things, I feel.
Yeah.
I know it's insane to complain about too many good restaurants, but sometimes
Yeah.
like it's just easier to go to the one.
Yeah, I like it. If I get too many options now in life, I just get overwhelmed. I'm just like, I want three choices.
Yeah. I would even take two choices,
Yeah,
maybe even one, maybe no choice, just one
no choice is
option.
great. It liberates a lot of like thinking time. Like, do you know, I have certain people in my life that like wear the same thing every day, and they say it kind of like saves them time in the morning. They're like putting on my white shirt and blue jeans out the door.
Absolutely. I've heard, I mean, a horrible reference, but Mark Zuckerberg, I think, is always talking
Ah,
about doing that type of thing. And actually, maybe even Steve Jobs, who would probably be
totally.
a bit better reference.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was a Steve Jobs kind of like origin story.
I hate to boil Edmonton down to that as well, but I feel like our downtown is getting a bit crazy, like a bit more, like I think COVID and fentanyl really
Yeah.
like tore things up. And then same thing, we have a lot more food, wine bars, lineups for like ramen and donuts. So we have all the hip stuff too. And I'm sure there's so many more things than just like increased poverty and increased TikTok food, but that's what I would say we have most of as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're saying this. I think in so many major or like cities now, it's like the wealth disparity is growing, which I kind of had the experience of being in Vancouver because you have like the downtown east side, then you have like billionaires with their like gigantic properties and stuff. But here it's definitely happening. I guess that's like a world, problem of just not funding social resources and people being super greedy. But yeah, COVID probably like exacerbated that. Maybe mispronunciation.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Maybe this isn't even like responsible to say, but I feel all those things, like whether it is like a bit more poverty or more like open drug use and stuff, that sort of in a way like you could attribute that to a growing city. And I don't think it's good to have those things, but they do in some ways signify that a city is growing, which is a bad way to look at it, but it's still the way I sort of see things.
I think maybe in terms, yeah, like economic growth, because then, but I think it's like largely due to like budget cuts. Like we had a few homeless shelters here that closed because the city wasn't funding them and like safe injection sites got shut down. So it is a sign of growth, but like at the expense of the vulnerable people, which is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've lost a ton of, maybe even all funding. We have some really evil people in charge right now, and they're
Mm,
getting rid of all any funding for anyone that needs it. Really, all the like
yeah.
safe consumption sites, everything. They're closing, and then all in the same breath, wondering what's happening on the streets. But it's like it's pretty obvious, like. I'm not an economist in any way, and I can see the flaws in what they're doing, so I don't know how they aren't. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting dichotomy.
so did you leave Saskatoon like shortly after high school to go to Vancouver?
Yeah, I took a year off and I traveled a lot, which was lovely. I had worked throughout high school at a shoe store and I saved my pennies and I went to Japan for a solid stint and then New Zealand, Mexico, and then I got into university and went the following year. So I was 19 when I moved, I guess, to Vancouver.
Was your plan, like, was Vancouver always the plan for you, or did you apply to multiple schools and then just kind of go where it made sense when you got your acceptance letters?
It was between Vancouver and Montreal, and I got into I think Concordia. And then it was a real toss up. I went to visit both places and I had one good friend that already lived in Vancouver. So I was like, that's kind of a way to ease into a big move. And I think I maybe liked the program or maybe the campus. It was a real kind of coin toss situation.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I mean, completely hypothetically, if I had two acceptance letters to schools at that age, I would have probably chosen Montreal. But then I'm
Yeah.
thinking of it in like the least school way possible. Like Montreal would have been more fun, but that's maybe not how you should choose based on your education.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. I really can't say, but I ended up living in Montreal in 2018 for like nearly a year. So I think I got the best of both worlds in a way. And in hindsight, I'm so glad. I ended up in Vancouver at that time because, as you know, probably there's so many great artists and musicians, and it was like a point before rent was crazy. So you were able to be in a shitty band, work a job, and sustain yourself. And now it's like pretty priced out. There's not a lot of possibility, I don't think.
It's in we were just out there a couple months ago, and there was people like the same people who I knew what they paid for rent back then, and then now
Yeah,
what they're paying for rent is like literally thousands of dollars more.
it's crazy. And it's not even for like, it's like for a bedroom suite in like, I don't know, Surrey or something. Or like, it's not, because I lived on Main and 14th, and I think my personal rent was like maybe $500, 600 in a kind of shitty house. But yeah, now it's
That
like,
still, like, I mean, it would never happen now, no matter like where the spot was.
yeah.
So I'm trying to piece this all together. I'm sure you telling me will help with that. Were you like, had you moved to Paris before 2018 when you were in Montreal?
Yeah, so I moved right after I got out of university in 2011, and I think I was 23 at the time. And then I moved there. I had saved money again from working at a coffee shop, and then I moved there and I burned through my money in 6 months. I like I would had this like little YOLO, like I'm in Paris, I'm gonna get a super expensive like bougie flat, and then I didn't really get any work, so I had to like tail between my legs, go back to Vancouver, work again, save up money. And then I started getting work, and I stayed there for 5 years. And then I had a little freak out, moved to New York for a year, then to Montreal for like a year. And then I've been back since 2019.
So, like, all of these places you're talking about, from what I know, are the most expensive rent in the world. Like Paris, New York, Montreal was significantly less, right? So
Yeah.
how did you go back to kind of affordable rent in Montreal and then back to Paris? Like, was that a strain on the wallet?
Yeah, for sure. And it was like, in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I maybe should have stayed in Montreal because New York, as you're saying, was so expensive. I was like very miserable the entire time I lived there because I lived in Queens with two roommates that were like not my cup of tea. And I commuted to work every day. It took like an hour and a half on the G train. And I was working as a photographer's assistant, getting paid pennies. And yeah, I was like, this is brutal. So I was like, I gotta get out of here. And then I got offered a job in Montreal. And my place there was like, it was on St. Joseph and some St. Hubert or something, like across from the Couche-Tard. And it was this falling flat. And I think it was maybe 1,000 Canadian dollars. And it had two bedrooms, an ensuite bathroom, another bathroom, a fireplace, and like a rooftop, private rooftop deck, which was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I assume in New York that would cost $30,000.
For sure. Yeah. And I was paying like more in New York for like a 10-meter squared bedroom in Queens with like crazy ass roommates. So yeah, I don't know. I maybe should have stayed in Montreal.
So then, how, like, in the midst of all this moving back and forth and like saving money and working, like, what made you think like starting a magazine would help you financially?
I never thought that. So I started the mag in 2015 as a hobby when I had quit working at another magazine in Paris. I was like, oh, I love doing it. So I quit my job and I was like, but I want to continue doing it. So the first 5 years it was just a hobby. So just interviewing people, getting like my friends to contribute artworks while I worked as an artist assistant or like studio manager. So I always made my bread and butter elsewhere until like I think 2022 maybe, which is when I started getting advertising.
So like this actually, I mean, no one is privy to the conversation we were having before we recorded, but your like the way you did things sort of aligns with the way I'm doing things now. Like you didn't rely on it for money, and that made
For
it
sure.
easier. I
For
might
sure.
be putting words in your mouth, but it seems like it would have been less stressful because you weren't relying on that.
Yeah, for sure. And I was doing it only once a year because it was just like a fun, slow thing. And like slowness is still important to me because, the world is so full of shit coming out that I think it's important to kind of have some sort of incubation time where, you put thought and care and time into something opposed to like every day having to do like a new story or something like that. But yeah, those early years, it was nice because it was more poetic, I think, and just really for my pleasure. And then advertising is sick because I love my job so much and I quit because I hate working for other people. I was like tired of getting bossed around. So I have my own personal freedom, but it has made the magazine, for better or worse, a slightly commercial endeavor. Like I'm not making bank, that's for sure, but I can survive.
How many issues were released like on the yearly release schedule?
Up until issue 7, so 8 and 9, I did two a year, and now 10, 11, I did two. So then it will continue summer, winter.
How do you? I'm just trying to think about how I would like if I'm ever laying out a project of mine. If I do it over a long period of time, I get like I guess I mean it's my work, so I can be as harsh as I want. I get kind of sick of it. Like I look if I'm laying out a zine, the first photos that I've added, by the end of it, seeing them so many times, they're just like I'm so desensitized to them. I just think there's no way anyone is gonna want to see these. Like they're so boring. So when you're laying things out and you have a whole year to kind of like think on them, is that good or bad for you?
It that happens to me in a certain way for sure, but I think maybe because I'm not producing the art, like I didn't take the photos, I still find them most, well, I still find all of the art to be beautiful. But the problem for me is the text because I write a lot of it and I copy edit it all. So I read those things like 500 times. And by the end, because I have to look for the little tiny mistakes and, edit it into cohesion. And by the end, I'm like, I do not want to read this thing anymore. Like I'm just like, send it away. Totally get sick of it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't do too much writing and don't really analyze like text that way, but I think if I was to do that, I might get even more desensitized than an image. Like I think
Mm.
I'm almost glad I don't have to like read over something I wrote for that long in anticipation of the release. That would really be even worse for me.
Well, the thing that it happens, I think, in most creative pursuits that you just start questioning it. I'm like, is this embarrassing how I write, or like, is this bad? Is it worthwhile to put out? So you go through all those things, and yeah, I don't know. Then at some point, you just commit and push print.
I actually think about like even like if I get some photos back from the lab in the evening
Mm.
and I go through them and there are a few that I like, a few that I like really don't like. Even by the morning, I'm sort of like I'll look at them again and think like, these are terrible. Like no one's gonna want to see these. I don't like them, and that's with like 12 hours of being able to absorb it all. I think like any longer, like another day, week, month, year would be even more like detrimental.
I think one thing that I kind of clutch on to is that I go back to that first instant of like it's seeming like you have like maybe an hour window of being like this is sick. But when I like first see someone's art, I'm like, oh, it's beautiful, and you're moved. So like I hold on to that when I am going through these things of like, is this ugly? And then I'm like, no, you liked it at the beginning, or you were proud of like that sentence you wrote. So I go back to like I had a reaction to this and I was moved. And you're probably like, you took that photo for a reason, right? And then it's printed and you're like, this is good. So I think the early kind of acceptance and optimism is what I cling to.
That, I mean, I would love to learn how to think that way. That's nice and very optimistic, but I just don't know if I'm getting older. I'm set in my ways. I would like to learn new ways to deal with all this, but might not be in the cards for me. I know, like you do everything over there, right? Like, how much is there anyone helping you when it comes to anything, like the curation or the writing or the editing or the copy? Like, are you doing it all 100% you, or are there other people involved in some aspects?
So I used to do everything like layout, design, everything typesetting. And then when I kind of changed it, I have a very limited capacity for learning technology. Like Brandy was saying, she's kind of a Luddite, and I totally identify as one. Like I used to be able to keep up with computer technology when I was like in, I don't know, first year university. I was like, oh, this button moved, but that's okay. And now it's just like InDesign gets updated every week and I don't know what's going on. So when I started to move it to be like a job, I hired a graphic designer. So for issue 8. And so he's been with me since, and he's good. He's a young German man, and he's just like very efficient and like, I think he's maybe Gen Z or something. So he knows what's going on with that stuff. So he saves me a lot of time. He's great. Shout out Hannah. And then I have another fellow that's helping me kind of with a artist. You kind of recommend some people, and he's a great writer too. And so I have those two people that help me just to take some of the load off. If I'm doing 2 issues, I can't do everything.
I mean, to get through the first eight single-handedly is like very commendable. Like so many people would not be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Did yeah, out of pure honesty, do you ever think about like did it get close to too much? Like did you almost not make another issue at all during those first eight?
Yeah, for sure. Every time I'm like, maybe that should be the last one. Um, like I said, like it's so hard to sustain. I like basically break even and like live on the poverty line. Like I've definitely month to month, I have no savings, but I've started to think of like currency in different forms. Like I think time is a big is something of value to me. So I have make less money, but I have more free time, and I think I'm able to enjoy life a little bit more. But yeah, for sure, after every issue, I'm like, this is tough and probably unsustainable, and maybe no one cares about it. Like I care, but who knows? Who knows if anyone, except for like that one person in Japan that emailed me. So you have these kind of doubts. But now I've told people like I actually think I have no other skill set and I am probably unemployable because I it's the only thing I know how to do now, like since the last 5, 6 years.
That I mean probably not true at all. Like, I know it's being a bit facetious, but I wonder, like, lately I've kind of been thinking, I know it sounds maybe a bit selfish and narrow-minded. I think not for everyone, but in my instance, maybe in your instance as well, it's just better to do things for yourself. Instead of
Mm-hmm.
like making like working at a magazine and contributing all your expertise to like helping that magazine, it
Mm-hmm.
might be better just to do your own. Like I've also learned some stuff like in jobs I've had, and really I know again selfish and maybe not everyone agrees, but it's like why I could just do this for me, and I feel it's more like sustainable as well. And if it's your project, you might try harder not to let it flounder or like go under. Like I feel like just someone else might not even care as much about their project that you work
Mm-hmm.
for to keep it going. But if it's all yours and I want to keep this going, like after you
Mm-hmm.
get over the thought of maybe that'll be the last issue, I feel like no one's gonna
Mm-hmm.
have more determination than the person whose project it is.
100% for sure. And I had that experience too because, like I said, I worked in magazines when I first moved to Paris, and my last kind of job was working for it was a more academic review, like art criticism. But I worked there full time, and it totally drained my will to do Blue Moon, which I was doing at the same time because I put all of my effort and thought and recommendation into making that magazine survive that I'd like come home and be like, I don't want to do this otherwise or like again. So yeah, I think determination and like we were saying, it's such a joy to talk to people for your own self interested ways. But another thing now is like, I don't think I'll ever quit Blue Moon because I would say like a solid 60% of friends in my life now have like come from through the magazine or maintained because say I included someone so that dialogue is like stricken up and you kind of have a bond of being able to have had like a deeper conversation with someone than like maybe some of your more like superficial friends. You don't get to know that much about them without like a platform of deep diving conversation.
Yeah, like completely understand and resonate with that because I like for a while and still currently have tried to kind of separate me from Noah Fast in a way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I try to like think of them as, or I romanticize the idea of them being separate, but then
Mm,
like you realize so many of my like closest friends or like people I've collaborated with or even people that I've like shared a really good conversation with that we haven't
mhm.
really done much beyond that, but the conversation was so good that's like at least I don't know if they will, but I'll remember it for a while. So after a while it just became so like futile for me to even think about not doing nowhere fast or like
Yeah.
trying to break it off more than I have. It sort of it became it kind of bled into my life so much that it's all one cohesive thing. And now that I've accepted that, I
Hmm.
kind of love it and I can't really see it going any other way.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm kind of like, well, I am the magazine now, but it like takes up all of my life. I like think about it all the time. So yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think it's like what we're saying now, it kind of breeds this like determination and like close attachment to something that you don't want to let go, or like it's kind of my child that I care so much about. So I want to keep nourishing it or like keep it growing and sustain it. Yeah, I don't. I'd be lost without it.
Yeah, I love the. I mean, I hate it sometimes when I'm in it, but I love it all. Looking back, like the back and forth, like the days of thinking that will be the final episode,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then no, wait, I actually love it, and I have 300 more ideas going forward.
totally.
Like, I like the like bipolarness of both of those. It's
Hmm.
kind of strenuous, like, and to be in it. I don't love it, but from the outside, I always look back, like, with fondness on the back and forth.
Yeah, and I heard you say, I think it was in a kind of recent podcast of yours, like, I felt that too. I was like, oh, after 4 issues, I will have interviewed and included all of the people whose art I like. Like, I won't know where to look. But then you said, like, but then a homie like recommends someone, or you research what they do and you find another dude whose stuff you like. And that's happening to me too, because I was like, I don't know any other art that I like than like my homies or like just one filmmaker. But now I'm like, oh my God, it's like such a great door opener into like the world that you didn't know about.
Yeah, and, like, absolutely. I learn every episode. I learn a lot about that person, but then
Mm,
almost 100% of the time, they either have like a they're like, oh, my friend does this. They would be an awesome, like, guest, and that, like, is amazing, and that's one way to find someone. Or I'll get a comment from someone who might not even, like, know who the
mm,
guest was, but then I look into them, and it's like this person is equally, their contributions to art should be discussed. And we kind of have the barrier broken down a bit because they already DM me. So then I'll just say, what do you think
yeah,
about doing one? There's always,
yeah.
like, there's so many more options now than there was at the beginning, which I never thought would be the case.
Yeah, and like I was saying, you have such a great roster of people, like interesting, and I like your. It's like kind of an eclectic mix, but a lot of like subculture, counterculture people. And when you kind of go through the backlog, you're like, of course I'd want to be a part of it. It's like he's got such great tastes and guests, and like your work has been incredible for so long. And I think just having like tenacity and like you're saying, staying consistent with something people respect and want to be a part of.
Well, thank you again. Very, very kind. Too kind, actually, but
No,
very nice.
true. Yeah.
So, I guess I love going off on side tangents, but I feel also I should ask you about Blue Moon. So there's one issue a year turned into 2 a year, but then the
Hmm.
magazine also branched off into the press, right? So how
That's right.
many publications besides the issues are happening a year?
So I've only done one. That one came out actually just this February with Gus Van Sant, who was a huge influence and kind of also door opener in my youth to like alternative films, art house films. And so it's just that book, but yeah, I'm gonna only do one or two a year, I think, to keep being able to do 2 issues a year. And it's a complete different thing than the magazine, like the learning curve of like funding and stuff. And making that book was so expensive because we printed it in Germany and it was like beautiful paper and like really high quality prints. And like we got a lithographer to like color match the paintings. And so I don't regret, spending some money on that. But it's like, as an independent publisher, you kind of have to learn the game of covering printing costs, which is like a new endeavor for me. But there's little tricks and funding and ways around it. But yeah, I think I'll try and do one beautiful book a year and then the magazine, keep that as my bread and butter with advertising.
I mean, I feel like this is just such a like standard boring question. But like Gus Van Sant is like an unbelievable legend. Like how did
Mhm.
that even happen? Like
It's
yeah.
a good question. So a lot of these little like I've had so many of my like youthful heroes I've been able to talk to, but they're all kind of these weird little like happenstance um situations. So Gus came about because one of my oldest friends in Paris I met in 2012, I think, he has this clothing line called Études Studio.
Oh yeah, really really love that brand. We carry
Yeah,
it at work.
yeah, they're great. They're like very thoughtful and they do a lot of each season they have like an artistic collaboration. So in I think it's 2013 they did a collection capsule collection with Gus on Malanoche posters they put on t-shirts. So they did this little t-shirt line. And then I realized I was like, "Oh, how did you work with him?" And then they were like, "I don't know, if someone found his email and we emailed him." And I was like, "Give me that email address." So he just like very kindly gave me his contact. And then I wrote him this like very flowery, heartfelt email about how he changed my life. And then he's also a painter. So I took the angle of like asking him instead of talking about his films, I think, which, he's done so much over the years. I was like, would you want to include some paintings in Blue Moon? And he's like, sure. And he's like, seriously, one of the most like chill, laid back, super kind, very generous people that I've ever met. And so, yeah, he put some paintings in issue 5. And then years later, I was like, oh, I want to start making books. And I'd be like, Gus is like the dream kind of, you know, subject. So I just asked him and was like, would you want to make a book on your paintings? He was like, yeah, sure. So yeah, I was lucky. It was like a lucky star.
That's a I mean, it's like where do you go from here? There, like
I know,
it would be like if I got like my dream guest on episode 1, like
I
what would
know.
I do going forward?
Well, that's why I'm like, maybe a peep and it's like game over. But it's kind of that thing that we were talking about, like people come out of the woodwork and you're like, oh yeah, I also, love this sculptor or something. Like you realize stuff keeps coming along. But he was definitely like a great first book to publish and such a honor and like pleasure to get to know a little bit. So yeah, I feel super lucky. That's like totally dream come true. I'm kind of like game over. I could die happy, I think. I think I've done what I needed to do. But let's see. Hopefully other things come up.
Yeah, I guess thinking of working with like your kind of ideal artist could be defeating in the way of like where do you go from here, but it could also be like very liberating in a way because you've already done that. So
Totally.
maybe like the
Yeah.
pressure of what's next isn't as much.
Yeah, it's something that I'm so proud of and like really astonished that happened, to be honest. But now sometimes when I have those doubts, I do carry it in my back pocket, like, oh, I have that experience and that book came out of it. So it has made me be able to be kind of proud and not think of myself as like a total failure, which is nice. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be tough. He'll be tough to beat.
But I mean, also like we were saying, there's so many things that kind of present themselves along the way. So even if it seems like kind of the peak now, like it's pretty insurmountable, you might later your next project might be like it'd be hard to be better, but it might be comparable, and then all of a sudden everything you kind of set like a great bar to reach each time.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, everything will be so different, but something that I realized about making the book, which was really fun, was like the object is obviously so important, but it's kind of this byproduct of like a life experience. And I almost like cherish, being able to talk to him and interact with him, go to his house or like something like that. And then the book is something that like popped out because of it. So I've started thinking of like what who is someone that I'd like to work with and really learn about them and like hone in on their practice, and then the object will just pop out at the end. So that's what's been a great realization about like making books. It's more like who would I like really want to get to know and like have in my life for a little point in time if I'm lucky enough. So that was interesting to think about.
It is. I've always wondered, and still like, well, for everyone, how like how books at all make even break even. Like because I see huge artists doing these books with smaller publishers. Like I see, not that that's a trend, but I see more of that these days, which I really appreciate. Like people making a book with maybe an independent publisher or someone smaller than they would have typically went to in the
Mm.
past, but then they only make like 250, 300 books, and I just think there's no way with the cost of this book, like, there's no way they're even remotely breaking, even if they sold every book at the opening.
No, I don't think they are. I don't think they are breaking even. And I will maybe break even or be under. But like, yeah, it's so costly. But the tricks that I was saying about is like I asked other publishers and they said like the ideal situation is you fandangle a way in which the production costs are covered. So another sneaky tactic which I learned, and thank you Vito Schnabel, is if a gallery is represented by an artist, they often will like generously contribute some or like all of the printing costs. So then that's not coming out of the publisher's pocket. So you don't make money, but you're not like losing 20 grand to produce a book. And then obviously there's like governmental grants or like other ways of funding. But this guy, Grant, has this company called American Art Catalogues, and he was super generous with sharing knowledge and information about how he's kind of made it work. And then obviously another a common occurrence is that people have other jobs. And then like there's this publisher in France called Loose Joints. They make really great books, but they're graphic designers too. So they make their money designing like a museum catalog and getting paid for having like a high graphic design fee. So yeah, I don't think if you're just a publisher, I think it's nearly impossible. And then the other like very obvious thing is like you're just super rich or something like that. Of
Yeah.
like disposal. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I do. All the people I know who do these amazing things and don't make money of them also have infinite family money. They're
I
kind of
know.
Nepo babies, as they're called
I
now.
don't know. It's always well, that's fine. You know what? At least they're contributing to culture in a way. But it is a bone to pick with me because I come from a very modest uh socioeconomic background. And I'm always like, I'm trying to change, but I'm always like, oh, rich kid, you know?
I know. I always joke with Sarah, like I
Yeah.
would be such a good Nepo baby. I wish I
Yeah, I
could have been
wish. I
one.
wish. Same. I'm still like, is there a way? I would love a patron. That would be great. You know, back in the days, like artists had patrons and you'd trade a painting or something, they would just be your financial supporter. But yeah, if I was born rich, who knows what I could have done. But then maybe I'd just be so annoying and like going on vacation all the time. It's hard to say. Sometimes I think you get grit from having limited financial resources.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If there is a way to start out as not a Nepo baby, but then somehow get grandfathered into nepotism,
Yeah,
that would be
that's
ideal.
the dream. That's the dream. I think there's still a chance for us. You
Yeah,
gotta you gotta you gotta maintain the hope. But now, like I said, money is not the most. It's never been like the most important part to me, but it certainly would make life easier. And like, you don't have to wake up in the night with a cold sweat, being like, "Oh, I'm in debt." That would be nice.
yeah. I meant to. say before when you mentioned this, I've been thinking more about the time, time being more important than things. Like maybe
Mm,
having more time might actually be, well, what am I saying? It would be better than having a ton of money and not having any time. And lately, I've
yeah.
been trying to think of ways. I would be totally fine with like having just enough money to do within reason things I want and have the time
Hmm.
to be able to
Yeah.
be like a really good partner to Sarah and a good like
Yeah.
brother and a good son. And I hopefully am all those things already, but it would be really nice to be able to focus on that stuff and not like focus on the whole like making more money like just to have it type thing.
For
Like I
sure.
see a lot of people making more money but then they have no time to spend it or
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
they haven't like fostered friendships or relationships to spend that with people.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's like it's always like it's a tough thing to achieve, but I think it's definitely worth thinking about. And I've never been like a big commodity gal. Like I can pack my life into two suitcases most of the time. So yeah, I just it's a different value system, but I certainly enjoy the finer things in life. I like eating at nice restaurants and I don't know, the occasional 200 pair of $200 pair of jeans. But yeah, it's interesting. It's tricky. And like we were talking about, just like the cost of living is insane. So you got to cover your bases, um, which can be tricky in itself. But there are ways around everything.
So I also meant to say this before. Like we were talking about how Vancouver has gone like kind of skyrocketed in like cost of living. But
Mm,
Paris as well has, I mean, I think Paris was always kind of expensive, but from what I hear, also very expensive these days. So did it like in the times when you moved back to Van or when you were living in Montreal, by the time you got back to Paris, was the cost of living like infinitely more?
surprisingly, I don't know if this is true in all cases, but for me, it's definitely not nowhere nearly expensive as New York City, and obviously more expensive than Montreal. But there's like we're saying, like the off balance of things is that you don't need a car in Paris. My rent is like all included 1,200 euros. First, it's small, of course. It's like 40 square meters. But so you don't get a lot of space, but then like groceries are really good quality and they're reasonable and like the pace of life is what I enjoy. It's pretty slow. They're obviously like the stereotype of like French people not liking to work is true, which is nice. There's a ton of like holiday time and people take time off in the summer for vacations. So it's expensive, but honestly, Saskatoon, like everywhere is expensive. My brother said like a one bedroom here's like $1,600 or something. So
Well, I was just gonna say, like Sarah and
yeah,
I almost pay. I would the equivalent of 1,200 euros is probably what we pay. Our place is bigger, I assume, but also
yeah.
not Edmonton is good, but it's not like not compared to a real city.
Yeah, it's interesting. Paris is like it is doable, and I think I don't know in terms of how you want to live your life. It's pretty dense, but it means like you can transport yourself places in a very short amount of time. I probably spend less time like walking to the corner store in Saskatoon than or like more. I don't know. It's just it's a livable sized city. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's manageable, I would say.
Sarah and I were just like before the last summer, I guess we were in Berlin, and the
Nice.
like what's with the groceries being so much better in Europe?
Yeah.
Like they like it was insane how much cheaper and better
Yes,
tasting and better for you they were?
for sure. And like that's a huge like point of interest, I think, for just like keeping, a healthy body and mind. And yeah, like I go to Costco with my mom and like a brick of Manchego cheese is like $25 or something. Like that's crazy. So certain parts you definitely don't get as much space. But yeah, groceries are cheaper. It's just yeah, it's just like what you value, I guess. But yeah, living in a big city is hard or different.
Do you think like if you had a maybe not a guess, you probably know it's your thing, but does is Blue Moon confined to Paris? Like, do you think if you lived elsewhere, you could still do it?
It's a great question. I mean, I don't think I could do it living in Saskatoon because a part of the appeal, which is like maybe wanky, is like I'll email someone and I'll be like, this is a magazine about art and subcultures based in Paris. So if I'm emailing someone, I don't know, in Texas or something, they'll be like, oh, that's cool. But if I was like, hey, I'm Blue Moon's based out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, I feel like there's less of like some sort of appeal in a better or worse. But I don't know, maybe I could do it in Montreal. Vancouver, I kind of Vancouver's tricky because it's so far west that it's kind of out of touch with Europe, I feel like, in a way, or just it's very like specific to they've got their little or like that's rude, but they've got an art scene and stuff, but I think the reach is harder. So I would say Paris is slightly necessary for kind of that international flair. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe that's just in my head.
No, no, I agree. I think it is definitely that way. I got so lucky, kind of not from the very beginning, but a while ago, I started branching out and talking to people all over. So most people actually don't know where the podcast comes from. Like, I'll sit down with people, the first thing they ask me is like, "Where are you? Or where's this based out of?" Like, a lot of people don't even know it's Canadian, let alone Edmonton.
Yeah.
And then when I explain it, because I also love being from here and I'm not
Yeah.
at all like trying to hide that. It's just
Yeah.
we got so lucky with, we talked to a bunch of people in New York at a time, so my
Hmm.
listenership is actually higher in New York than anywhere else in the world. So a lot of people thought we were a New York podcast, which is
Yeah.
incredible. Like, they can think, I'll correct them. I'm not trying to lie to anyone, but if people want to think that, it's just better for me.
It's interesting. I do wonder if the dissemination or like our mediums, like I feel like a podcast kind of allows a certain placelessness because it's transmitted through the airwaves. Like whereas I think something like a magazine, is a physical object in a place. That's what it is in like reality. Where like podcasts and audio stuff is so great because it's so easily transmittable. So I think like you being in Edmonton is irrelevant. Like, you know, which is great.
I agree, and I would like if people thought that way, but I think not everyone, but there would be some people who saw that as a negative. Like, you think a band technically should be able to make good music from anywhere, but I think if people say they're from a certain place, people might think less. Like, that girl Tate McRae is super big, but then I do hear the odd person say she's from Calgary, and that's like a
Yeah,
negative thing. But
yeah,
and like, I don't know how much she talks about being from Calgary. Like, there are people from Edmonton who have. I mean, like, I have no idea how Mac did what he did from here, but he also
yeah.
doesn't ever mention that he's from here. Like I know people from here that love Mac DeMarco that didn't know that he's from here.
Really? I guess because I like was better friends with him earlier, that he would be like, "Oh, I'm from Edmonton," but maybe because that he still lived in Canada. But I don't know. I think one thing that you made me think of just now is that maybe it's not like that living in the place is a detriment. I think something is true for bands and Blue Moon is that the the people that you can meet is different. So he lives in Los Angeles now, so his exposure to other artists maybe at his level is he can meet them, like he can go to the studio with him or something. Whereas like Blue Moon too, I think like my proximity to other people is like it's closer, so it gives me more opportunity than say like Saskatoon. I don't know, these things are hard to know what is the case or not.
Yeah, it's all hypothetical. You never. I mean,
Yeah,
we can like speculate, but
yeah,
I love. I love that anyone. I mean, I like that anyone excels at anything, no matter what. But it is.
yeah,
I like when people excel from places like Edmonton or Saskatoon,
yeah,
like but places that have less exports. When they have an export, I always like get an extra level of fandom for that person because they like made it happen from a place where typically that wouldn't happen.
for sure. I love that too. It's like a little bit of like the underdog, favoring, and also I think when people do make it out in a nice way, they have this like salt of the earth kind of vibe. Like I like prairie people to me are normally like really sweet, kind people. So it's nice to see them flourish, and they have to. I realize like you have to take more steps and have more grit, like I said before, like to push through certain hurdles instead of like being born in New York City and like your dad is like a famous photographer or something. Like you have to really be like like walk through the mud for a little while.
Are there I notice a lot like wherever I go if I'm traveling, it's like the Edmonton people will like find each other and like
Yeah.
even if they weren't friends here, they're somehow like friends in Berlin. Like, are there other Saskatoon people in Paris and are you associated with them just because of that bond?
I only learned about one other Saskatoonian 2 years ago because I always kind of thought I was the only one because Saskatoon is so small you would hear about it. But there's this guy Josh, and he's a philosopher, and he like works at a university there. And I was having drinks last summer with my friend Michaela. She's like, "Oh, Josh, this guy just came over. He lives in Paris too." But I think we were both kind of like, "You took my spot." We're kind of like, there's only one room for one of us, but we did hang out. He's a very sweet young man. So he's the only one I know of, but I totally know what you're saying. We call like Berlin like little Alberta or whatever. They have like they all hang out with each other. It's like the Albertan, Edmontonian, Calgarian crew, and a lot of the Vancouver transplants. They do have their little posse, but I understand why. Like you have it's like a home, it's like a comfort thing, and you have the same foundation and references. Like you talked about homesickness, and one of my great homesicknesses is having the same sense of humor as someone that I grew up with. Like we do, like prairie people are like, we kind of have our little bumpkin vibe, or like I don't know, the jokes are different. So I understand why people stick together. Nice.
That's actually really, really good. That for sure, like if I did feel homesick somewhere and I ran into someone who like was in the same sort of humor that I was, I
Yeah,
would instantly feel comforted. I
yeah.
mean that maybe
Well,
that's why traveling with Sarah is so easy because
yeah,
we think the exact same things are funny, and
Totally.
we kind of
Yeah.
met under that pretense, but then also just we've been together for so long that it's just kind of like
Yeah.
become that way as well, like in a good way.
That's so cool. No, and I heard you saying, or like Ian and Brandy and you and Sarah, you kind of have this like you have this like home together. So when you're away, it's not so homesick. Or like you, yeah, you share the same language and like the same sense of humor. I don't know. That's so important to me. And like the thing about Paris, I say this like loud and proud, is like French people are not funny to me. Maybe some people, but I they just aren't the same. So when I moved to New York, it was like largely in part because I wanted to be around North American humor again, or like understand, come from the same referential points, or like someone that likes Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm just like, I miss that. Like, it's such an important part of my life. Like, I think being funny is like the coolest thing ever. So yeah, yeah, I get,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
a little,
I agree with that. I would probably put like someone's sense of humor at the top of
oh yeah,
the list when I'm.
yeah,
I guess now it sounds like I'm judging everyone, but I guess if I was to judge someone, like it would be, I would put humor ahead of all the other service level stuff, like the way
100%.
someone dresses,
Yeah.
looks, all that stuff. Would I
Hmm.
would never think about that humor for sure.
For sure. Yeah, it's like top of the charts. But you know what? It's rare in my old age. I think because we were blessed, like I find a lot of our friends really funny. But growing older, I'm like, it's kind of like a rare occurrence that you meet someone that is like really has it going on. Like funny people, I think, out in the world are few and far between. So I've started really respecting, no, like cherishing my funny Canadian friends more
I
than I
think
already
it's
did.
because we grew up, or at least I did. I assume we're similar in age. We like
Mm.
we had to be funny. Like we didn't have phones or YouTube or anything like
Yeah,
telling you what could be funny. We just had to like trial and error, figure it out for ourselves, and then like act on that accordingly. So I think like people like millennials are are fun. Maybe not
yeah.
everyone, but typically funnier than someone just like regurgitating like slang they heard on TikTok or something.
That's so true. And I think like yeah, you figure it out and then you kind of have your own language. But yeah, you like when you find your little crew of like people that you have the same sense of humor with. Like some of my favorite people are from Saskatoon that I've known from high school because they're hilarious. And like, yeah, you can't really, you can't, it's hard to find.
What do people like when you look back at what all the people still in Saskatoon are doing with their lives? Are they like realtors or like what have a lot of them done? And I don't mean any offense by that. I just think of people who kind of stayed here and didn't like travel or anything, like people who I really love, but they've just kind of been like true Albertans. They're like usually trades or like realtors, maybe a couple like doctors, dentists, but for the most part like it's kind of realtor.
Yeah, that's certainly the case for some people, but um, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I grew up with the Nine Times crew. So my high school boyfriend was a skateboarder, and I was his best friend was Jason Gordon. So I've known that squad since I was at 14 or something. So a lot of them, as you know, still work for Nine Times. Like Dan Watson is a good friend. My one of my favorite Saskatoonians, Luke Buchan, works there. Jason obviously owns it. So that is like a big kind of part of the city in our friendship group still. And then yeah, like people that take more traditional lives. I have a good friend that became an engineer. But like you're saying, they're kind of more tradesy or like practical jobs, I would say.
Yeah, there's engineers too.
Yeah.
I should have giving that some credit. I do have a couple people around me that kind of went that way too. And I mean, all of these people have more money than I do,
Oh
but
yeah.
I wonder,
Yeah.
do they have time?
I don't think so. I think they're all very busy. I think, yeah, the people that kind of got real jobs, but they also got like the quote unquote, what would you call it? I don't know. They have like a life that I certainly don't have, which has comforts. Like they own houses, they've got kids, they have a regimented kind of life, which is cool, which is like a trade-off, I think, in some ways that I have. I couldn't own a house or support children. So yeah, maybe they have less time, but they have like a maybe a more comforting lifestyle, which is
Y-
cool.
Yeah, definitely I mean, I think they used to say the white picket fence, but
Yeah,
there
yeah.
isn't that many of those around here, no matter what tax bracket you're in.
It's hard. What do you mean? Not too many people own houses?
No, no, they own houses. I mean, they literally don't have white picket fences.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like they might have a really nice house, but it doesn't actually have the fence around it. I don't see too many of those.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like an interesting grass is greener situation because sometimes I'm like, that seems really nice, you know? But then maybe they're like, oh, I wish I could travel more. But yeah, it's interesting. It's there's definitely so many ways to live your life and the spectrum of kind of what is more normative or experimental. But yeah, I love all my Saskatoon homies.
How? Let's see. I'm trying to think of how far into the next issue are you? Like, as soon as the issue comes out, are you like the next day working on a new one, or is there any like decompression time in between? Like, do you ever take time off, or is it just always like this is just what you're doing 24 hours, 365?
Um, Maybe the amount of time lessens a bit, but something that I like that's tending to happen more now is like someone will spring up in a way that either the timing was off, like someone I approached was like, "Oh, I'd love to do it, but I have a big painting show out in April. Can we do it then?" So their name will be like tacked on already, or like someone like in conversation will come up and I'll have them on the list. So yeah, as soon as one's out, I'm already kind of like halfway done collecting the people I'd like to be in it, but I don't have to maybe be on my computer. Like I normally, when I'm in the thick of things, keep office hours. Like I work 10 till 6 every day, so I structure. I have structure. I think that's important. But yeah, I'm always kind of, I'm always working on it. I would say, yeah.
At least to me, I think the structure like keeps me like it guides me. I guess like when I have less structure, I always like romanticize the idea of that and wish I had less on my plate. But then when I do have less on my plate, I feel like I'm more just kind of like wondering what to do next. I kind of need that like guidance and structure in most ways.
Same. It's a total necessity to me now. Like in my youth and early 20s, I floundered a lot, a bit, and maybe didn't always have like steady work, and that's enough to drive a person insane. And I do spiral. So if I have too much time to think, I'm like, oh my God, your life is over. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know? So I think, yeah, being like, these are my working hours, these are my jobs, and like having a routine when you can. Yeah, I love it. I love a bit of structure now.
Yeah, I know. That's the way I feel, and then when I tell people that, it's always like a mixed reaction. Some agree, some disagree, like a lot. I don't know.
Really?
I just know, like for me personally, that's the best way to do it that I've learned over the years.
Yeah, I can't be so like willy-nilly anymore, I think. But That being said, I have structure, but still like a lot of freedom in like I'm not going to the laboratory every day or something. Like my days are different enough that the structure is there, but also it's not monotonous or repetitive.
Yeah, that I was gonna say, like, if you can find a balance between, having some sort of structure and like way you operate every day and not being like completely stuck in like Groundhog Day and doing the same thing over
Yeah,
and over again.
yeah, yeah. That has begun to terrify me, which I think is like when we were saying these like kind of more traditional lifestyles. I think I'm not cut out for it because I would just be like, I can't go into the whatever the office every day for the rest of my life. Like this is it, you know? I That would drive me crazy.
Yeah. Me too, for sure. And I've gotten close to that and then had to like kind of stray away from it because I knew that it would eat away at me eventually, sooner rather than later, probably.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I'm looking at the time. I think I took way more of your afternoon than I said I would.
No, I had all day reserved for you. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that. I mean, I had a really good time. I always hope the S do as well. Hopefully you did.
Absolutely. No, it's such a treat. I really enjoyed myself.
Before I boot us both off, do you want to take a second to let anyone listening know where they can find any of your projects? I assume Blue Moon specifically, whatever you want to promote. The mic is yours. Please go ahead.
Cool. That's so nice. Yeah, the Blue Moon Instagram's just Blue Moon Magazine, and then the book side has a different one, Blue Moon Press. They both kind of have busted websites, but they're out there. And then yeah, the magazines in I think maybe 15 or 20 bookshops worldwide, which I try and make like a stockist list of. And the book's already all distributed, but it's um, floating around too. You can find it online. But yeah, those are my plugs. Thank you for the space for them.
One more question before we leave. If you don't mind sharing, what is the significance of Blue Moon to you?
The name or the whole project?
The name, sorry, yeah, the
Oh
name.
yeah. um, so it's like maybe two or three part. First, maybe the most common association is it's Elvis song, which I love. And then it's also that kind of idea that once in a blue moon something special will happen. You're like it's a kind of rare thing, like, oh, once in a blue moon, you meet that cool person. Um, I guess those are the two main things, kind of the phrase and the song and just the sentiment of rare and beloved occurrences.
Awesome. I love it. I liked it anyway. I kind of thought that might be the answer, but I just like to always hear it from the person who can explain it best.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Like when you hear a movie title in the middle of the movie, you're like, that's probably
Yeah, exactly.
great question. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the vacation, I guess. Like, would you call it a vacation?
Yeah. I'm calling it a vacation.
Well, enjoy. I'll shoot you an email about assets and stuff, but that's super easy.
Awesome. I appreciate it so much. It was so dream come true. I've been loving your podcast.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Okay, enjoy your afternoon as well.
All right. Bye.
See you, Wes. Bye bye.